everyone, today's video is a little bit different to my normal videos. Recently I was invited to come and do a soap making demonstration with the Young Women's Youth Group at my local church, and the 3 girls that were in the youth group and their leaders had a ton of fun watching me make the soap. I allowed them to make the decisions on the colors that they chose, and they got, well, I provided the fragrance and I gave them the watermelon lemonade fragrance, like one of the most popular ones that I have, but they had fun decorating the tops of the soap. This is the loaf of soap that they made. Unfortunately, they weren't, obviously because I had to let the soap set and everything, they didn't get a chance to see it get sliced. But I thought that this would be a great opportunity by making the video for me to allow them to see the process still, as well as, you know, kind of be a part of it. And then I will be taking the soap to church in a few weeks' time once it's hardened up a bit, and I'll be giving them care instructions on that they should let it sit for a few more weeks before they use it for the best results, etc. But yeah, they decorated the top with, I had a lot of leftover soap embeds, and so I'm always like, oh, I'm just going to save them up and put them in a, you know, on a soap one day. It's just going to be like a mix match soap. But yeah, this was a great opportunity for them to have some fun and for me to reuse or use up some of the things that I already had. So they voted and they chose to go with a blue and gold in the pot swirl. And yeah, so we're going to be cutting this today. It has been sitting for a week. So I unmolded it a few days ago, and yeah, so it's gotten a bit harder and everything, which is great. You can see I tend to have a bit of a struggle with the silicone molds that I have. I'm on the lookout for better molds, but this is why. I mean, I do end up trimming off the edges, etc. But yeah, you know, we should constantly strive for perfection, I guess. So I'm going to be cutting it, and yeah, then I will be trimming it, and I'll probably stamp it today too, because the sides are solid enough, because like I said, I've let it sit for a few days after unmolding it. So obviously, as I make this video, as in my previous videos, I'm going to talk a little bit about what I'm doing, but if it seems like I'm repeating myself, that's just because this video is primarily for the young women that I did the activity for in the soap demonstration, but of course everyone else is free to watch and to learn too. So I'm using my single wire slicer here. It was made by an Australian fellow on Etsy, which I will find the link and I'll put it in the info box down below. So I had it like locally made, I guess. I'm in another state. And yeah, so what I'm going to be doing is I've pushed the I guess the end of the where it's going to come up to. I've measured it and put it to 3 centimeters, which is my regular slice. And what I did when I asked young women to decorate the soap, I asked them to be mindful, and I'd marked out where each of the slices would end up being. So there will be a little bit of like off cut, I guess, and some of the images will be cut off, but they were aware of that, so they did their best to line them up. Yeah, so we'll see how it goes. I've tried to place the camera at a nice angle, so if my arms get in the way or it's a bit awkward, we'll see how it goes. So I actually might quickly measure off this end, because this little piece here I know is 2 centimeters. So that one I think I'll do first. Should I? No, actually we're not, because it's okay, because that way I'll make sure I have 3 centimeters and then that will be the excess. Never mind, we're going ahead with it, guys. So every time, this was previously on 2 centimeters because of a previous, I did a custom order for somebody. So I'm just going to grab my ruler. I've just carefully placed the mark there. Yep, so it's, I still like to measure once I actually go to put the slice in to double check that it's 3 centimeters. So I've tightened the string, so it's nice and tight. You don't want to over tighten it so it snaps, but then I'm just going to carefully pull it straight down, and there's our first slice. Yay! So it's cute. I will do over the, like an overhead shot for a few slices, and then I will be switching so we can see it cutting from the end, so we can see all the pretty colors there too. So I just take the excess. You can see me sliding my fingers down the wire. It's just because obviously there's soap residue from being cut through. So I just like to clean it off so it's not coming out on top again on the next slice. So it's not a huge deal. It just saves me having to clean up the edges a little bit with all that extra debris you might say on it. Yeah, these are really cute. I always love doing in the pot swirls because of all the different patterns. Every single slice is different. So you can see here that there are a little like slice lines. So that's where I hesitated there because I was using my wrong hand. Normally I'm left-handed, but from where I put the camera, I have to use my right hand right now. So it just leaves a little bit of a little light, like you can just tell where you've started to pull the wire down and then you've stopped partway through. So just got to work on making sure you try not to do that, just to make it all more uniform. But just making sure that the edge of the soap is right up against the plastic here and then also against here, so it's nice and even. Oh, wrong hand, I almost did it again. Can't help myself. So it happens when, you know, you're used to using it with one hand. So being careful to pull it out. I think I've noticed that, at least with my recipe, that I try not to handle the fresh cut surfaces. It'll be okay in a few hours, but I definitely noticed that you'll leave imprints, like touching it just like that was okay, but if I was to pull it out and hold it, it's softer because it hasn't been exposed to the air yet. So you want to be careful that you give it some time to harden up and the prints, your fingerprints don't come out on the soaps. Now I have decided I bought recently a new slicer. It's like a vegetable peeler. It's a fruit peeler, a food peeler. You can also use these ones. I liked getting this one because you can see that between the blade and the edge of the framework, there's a lot more of a gap. It meant that every time I trimmed the edges of the soap, it doesn't get stuck as easily. I was having to stop so much using that smaller one. But because of the careful edges of the decorations on the soap and being so close to the edges, I don't want to accidentally nick off the patterns and stuff, so I'm going to be using the small slicer today. And what I'm just doing is I'm trimming up all of the edges. It just makes it look a bit more polished, I guess. There is nothing wrong with leaving the sharp edges on, and when I say sharp, they're not going to cut you, obviously. It just makes it a little bit nicer to hold as well. So all I do is carefully run the edge of the slicer along it, and it peels off a tiny ribbon of soap. Is that focused? It is not. Is that better? I can't tell. Anyway, it's a tiny piece of soap, so just off the edge. What I do is I save all of those soap scraps and then I put them into other soaps. So I call it, well, they're also known as confetti soaps. Yeah, it's called that because it kind of looks like funfetti cake batter, which is where you put like lots of sprinkles inside cake mix. And instead you can color the soap any color you want. Some people will use uniformed soap scraps, like all of the same color, or I put all of mine in one container together, and when I have enough I end up mixing it all together in a soap base that I've made sure that the color is like neutral so that it's easier to, you know, it doesn't clash too much with any of the colors. The only time that I actually separate them is when you do my regular soaps and then when I do my all natural soaps. So I also make sure that I just do the edges, so that down here, normally I would also do across the edges here, but again, it looks a bit odd to just do one edge and say not do this edge or this edge. So I'm just going to leave that. So it's like that. So as you can see, the edges are a little bit, it's not sticky, but because they have just freshly come off and they're being exposed to the air, it does become a little like, it's not wet, it's not sticky, it's easier to stick to things. So just need to pull it off all the time, that's all. And again, that's why I bought the bigger peeler, because it's a little bit easier. So usually when I'm not recording, I'm trying to be very conscious, very aware of where the camera is, and if I'm, you know, doing the soap in the shot, constantly kind of like looking at the screen on the camera to make sure that it's in focus. So hopefully it is, but that's why as well, I'm constantly learning. So I'm hoping that my videos over time will get better and better, and so I can share my soap making journey. So also off camera, I usually do these a bit faster. This one here, you can see very much the edge. It's kind of like bent in a bit. Normally that would be sliced off, but we decided that it was okay. It was just going to add to the character of it. The girls were so happy to be involved in soap making, to try something. So like I said, I actually ended up making the soap because obviously there were chemicals involved, dangerous chemicals. So I made the soap in front of them, but I brought along a bunch of different colored micas and allowed them to choose. They voted on which 2 colors would be chosen, and they decided they wanted to go with a starry night sky. So I did explain to them, and this is what's happened, is that the blue color, with any color, it's not just with the blue, you have to put in the right amount to make it dark enough, or if you want it lighter, you would do it lighter. So while we went for a night sky, I think we kind of had more of a, you know, night sky just before the sun rises, you know, so it's not pitch black. Obviously it's not super dark blue, but it's still really pretty. It showed up the 2 colors, and I love the way it kind of looks a bit like a light ochre color, until once you wet the soap, it will be a lot more gold and shimmery as well. So that's really cool. Now it's time to stamp the soap. So what I'm going to do is pull out the stuff that I need. So I use a folded up, it's an old Doona cover that's been washed, and I keep it separate in my drawer, and I use it kind of like as a bit of insulation or a buffer between the board that I use and the table, because I will be using a mallet, a rubber headed hammer, with my soap stamp to stamp my business name into the soaps. So it has my name, it's backwards obviously, but it has my business name on the soap. I had this custom made, and you can get a lot of designs made, so pretty much custom, anything you want. I have learned from experience that some things you shouldn't have made, or be careful how you do the design. Like if it's too thin or too thick, too complicated, it won't appear properly in the soap. So, you know, sometimes it sucks. It's a hard lesson to learn, but I have to remind myself, keep growing, keep learning. You know, you got to learn from your mistakes. So I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't have made that mistake, but now I have that knowledge. So what I do with this soap is, this is a great way, not only do I have my name on my soap labels that I put on the packaging, but I also have, it's like having a signature directly in the soap. So I stamp it into the sides of the soap here. The reason that you use a hammer is because, and it has to be a mallet, because it does provide force, but it's not too hard or strong to destroy the soap or the stamp as well. So you use the mallet because you're not just, it's not like a stamp with an ink pad where you just carefully press it on with your hand and then press it straight onto the paper. Here you do need to provide a little bit of force, because we're going to be leaving an indent in the soap. So what I normally do is I do actually like a couple of them all together, and I just go bang, bang, bang and do them all in a row. So before I also do that, I have a bottle here that has isopropyl alcohol in it. And so what this does is, this is a great way to make sure that once I stamp the stamp in, I can carefully and more easily pull the stamp out. It's not going to be stuck in the soap and it won't ruin it. So the reason that also, since I unmolded the soap, I left it a couple of days out of the mold before slicing and stamping, is that it allows it time to firm up. So that means that because if the soap is too soft, then that means that when you go to stamp it, you will squash the soap or you'll just destroy it, and the words are hard to see in the soap. I've also had it at times where I was just impatient or too excited to go ahead and you know, stamp the soaps, and I've accidentally done it too early, and when I've gone to pull the stamp out, it has got left like big holes in the soap, where it's because the soap is just so soft it's stuck to the mold, to the stamp. So what I do is, isopropyl alcohol is great for, so just a quick little spray, just one little spritz to cover it a little bit. It's okay if I get isopropyl alcohol on the soaps, because it's also used sometimes to spray the tops of the soaps to make sure that soda ash doesn't form. That's something else to talk about another day. I'll explain that to the youth then. But it's okay if it gets on there, because it's such a high concentrate, it just evaporates. So it's not damaging the soaps at all or anything. It's just helping me. So my soap stamp is just narrow enough to fit onto the soap. I try and line it up as much as I can in the middle, and then just 2 taps, and then carefully pull it out. So that one I can see here is a little bit pushed in. So I probably, even though I barely tapped it twice, I probably will try just tapping it once to distribute the force, but not so, it was too much, I guess you could say. So it pushed it in a little bit. All the words are fine. It hasn't pulled any of the soap out, but I can see that it's pushed it down just a little bit. So I'm going to try it again and see how it goes. When you buy soaps, stamps as well, they don't always come with a handle like this. I would probably try and get ones which are more flat, because when tapping the stamp into the soap, it's difficult to distribute the force evenly across all of it to make sure the whole thing is imprinted with just 1 or 2 strikes. It's not, I can't hit directly onto this board, it can only be on the handle, which is a little bit annoying. So that's something else that I have learned for next time I have soap stamps made. So one here, we'll see how that goes. And from where I'm sitting, I can see how far it's gone in, and if it's at an angle, I would then try and push down one side to make it a little bit better. Fantastic. This one is a lot nicer. It's not pushed in as much. It has left a good imprint though. So I'm going to keep doing it with just one simple tap. So one more, and then I will line up the next lot. Every now and then, sometimes I will, oops, I tapped that one a little bit too hard again. That's okay. Every now and then I will reapply a little spray of the rubbing alcohol, or the isopropyl alcohol, just to make sure, because it's gone dry because it evaporates, just to make sure it doesn't stick. It makes it go a lot quicker, a lot easier. Sorry if my hand's in the way. Nice little taps. And I just have 3 more left to do. So like I mentioned, so it takes about 6 weeks approximately for all of these soaps to harden up, and I consider them ready to sell. I'm ready to hand them off to customers, and that means that, because these are still very soft in regards compared to a regular soap that you would use, which is a lot harder. The harder it is, it means that the water has evaporated out of it. So the water has started to evaporate from the outside, but obviously now that we've cut it, the inside is exposed, so it means that now it's in slices, it will be able to harden up a lot quicker. So it takes a long time with 6 weeks, but it's a necessary process, being a traditional, you know, old-fashioned form of soap making. But yeah, so I will be holding on to these for probably a week more, just to make sure that they are a lot harder and less soft than now. And then I will be taking them to church in about a week's time, or maybe 2, depends. And I will be showing these and handing them over to the young women. So they will be really excited to have these soaps. They were really excited to go home and to share with their families about the soaps that they got to make. There were other age groups there for the youth night as well, and they were walking past our area and they were like, what's that smell? It smells delicious. We chose to do I chose for them, I thought it was just one less distraction, was to choose to give the fragrance that they would use. They chose watermelon, I keep saying that. I chose watermelon lemonade. One, because it tends to be a universal scent liked. I've noticed it's one of my most popular scents that I've had for sale among people. And also it is a very well behaved fragrance to use in soap making. So I explained that to the young women, that I wanted to make sure that we weren't going to have any extra hiccups, as it was a demonstration and I didn't want to accidentally have a failed batch of soap right in front of them, because it would have been a disappointing night. So I'm really thankful for the opportunity I had to share something that I enjoy and I'm interested in. And I really enjoyed seeing not only the young women themselves, the young girls, but also their leaders. They really got into it. So while I did the soap demonstration, I then gave them gloves to use, and they carefully, using my special decorating tweezers, placed all of the decorations, the embeds on top. So they are going to really enjoy taking home this piece of art, practical piece of art that they've made, and sharing it with their family. So I hope that they enjoy watching this video, and I can't wait to do some more soap making again with some people to share it with them. I hope everyone has a great day, and I look forward to hearing from you soon.